next time.
Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show.
So it's not often that we have a double interview on consulting leaders, but here we are. Sometimes it is actually a good thing. Adele, Chip, welcome to Consulting Leaders.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
So you both come from completely different worlds. So tell us a bit the story of how this path met and what made you, work together on solving major communication gaps for executive and organizations.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, we actually met at an entrepreneurial dinner, and it's one of those small group settings, where you go around and you introduce yourselves. And I heard Adele's story, the works that she had done, that worked with presidents, spoken at the United Nations, consulted for major organizations. I thought, maybe we have something that it would be compatible, that we could actually complement each other's skill sets. So we started to talk, and that's how we started working together.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I met Chip, I thought, wow, another high stakes communicator like me, but obviously very different worlds, right? Like I do it in the corporate communications, boardroom type setting, and he's doing it with hostages and spies and various, high profile.
Cool.
Yeah, it's so neat. Obviously high profile individuals. And so what we wanted to do was really bridge those two skill sets and say, how can executives learn from someone like Chip? How can I bring that into my crisis communications firm at the time? And what I found is when I did a lot of crisis communications work, people would do the work with me. We'd solve the crisis, we'd get through it, but they didn't necessarily like it. And then when Chip came on board, it was much more a study of how are people feeling during the crisis? How do we get them more comfortable? How do we move through the crisis and still really have our best interaction with them? And that's what began to happen. Really, it's just he studied people, how to read people, how to listen to people in a way where they felt understood. And even in a high stakes moment, they came around and said, okay, yeah, I am feeling this fear, or I am scared to do this because of this reason, right? We saw people open up more.
I guess I'm sure that they opened up to Adele, before me, but yeah, that's a part of the practice, right? Is that unless somebody is comfortable with the steps you're asking them to do, they're not going to do them. And so, but the success of it hinges on their ability to actually do those things. And then the result of that is, then if they have a good feeling, the result's good, and the process was good for them, then the engagement was a huge success.
So how do you get someone to become comfortable taking on those steps? Because at the end of the day, I do believe that most people know what to do. There is you don't know what you don't know, but things are in a sense pretty simple, but never easy. So how do you guys make people actually comfortable taking those steps?
Well, I would also add something to that as well, is that that they don't always know what to do in a crisis. And Adele will expound onto this much more, but it's counterintuitive. So much of their instincts of we got to circle the wagons, we got to we this is so unfair.
Got to make everybody happy.
Yeah. And they go off on these tangents that are really just whipsaw kind of decision making, without any grounding, without any forethought about, hey, in like 20 days, what's this going to look like? So there's so much that goes into that. But to answer your primary question, the idea of how do you make somebody comfortable in these difficult situations is that this is where what we call forensic listening comes into effect. And we've developed a way of listening to a person in a very deep way, we say that forensic listening is the art and science of analyzing a conversation after it's happened, because words leave clues. And when you can understand somebody at that level, with a more robust, getting to their what we call their unstated narrative, that thing that they actually really believe about what they're
But they just
experiencing.
won't say. They
But
just
yeah,
won't say it.
but
Yeah.
they're never going to tell you, right? And that's a part of the, what I learned at Quantico through interviewing in my field work as an agent, and what Adele has for countless hours of working with CEOs, that there's always a holdback. And once you unlock that one, the floodgates open up, and you can experience so much more clarity.
Yeah, and there's 4 ways to approach forensic listening, right? So essentially, like we always say, it's like, we all use those AI note takers. We probably have Otter AI in the background. We've got those Firefly note takers, and those are great. Those are great for next actions, for what was said. But what you should be doing is taking forensic listening notes. And the way you do that is you divide a piece of paper. Yes, this is very analog, right? You divide a piece of paper in 4. And in the top left corner, you write emotions. So like, what emotions have they displayed? Or were they sad when they said it? Were they joyful when they said it? Were they, downtrodden, whatever, right? Like in the top left. And then top right is body positioning. So like, what position was their body in? Were they open? Were they closed? Because why do we always say body position, not body language?
Yeah, we differentiate that, right? Because body language, we say is more static. It's right there. You're taking a snapshot of a person. But for body positioning, we're all creatures of movement in our world. We recognize that. So when we're talking to somebody, you're going to see the ebb and flow that will come out of their body. Are they really down about something? You're going to see the shoulder slump. You're going to see maybe the size. But so you're watching for that as well.
But body language is not like what you always say. Like,
yeah, so if somebody sits with their arms folded and legs crossed, right? You've heard this, Guillaume, right? Is that, well, they're resistant, they're angry. Well, sometimes you just want to sit with your arms folded and legs crossed, right? It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So there's and then
right.
we have themes.
Yes.
That's another quadrant in that. And
this is the stories they keep going back to over and over again, the things that they repeat, the things that they're concerned with, right? And again, AI note takers can pick that up. But if you're picking it up in real time, you're going to be much more present in the conversation.
Yeah.
Additionally, you want to be looking at their voice, their pitch, tone, and cadence. Does it speed up? Does it slow down? Does their voice go low? Does it go higher? You should be paying attention to all these things. While that AI note taker is taking the notes, you're paying attention on an emotional level. That's where forensic listening can give you a really competitive advantage. And then once you listen, after a couple of conversations, you have these notes that give you so much more of an insight into the person's emotional world, so that you can do what we always called the convincing continuum. But I'll leave it there for you to ask some questions about that.
Thank you, Adele. I appreciate it. But I like the back and forth that you both have. It's high energy indeed. So, I mean, we've already alluded to some of the questions that I wanted to ask. So, I like it. Let's go freestyle, and let's go where the conversation takes us.
Okay.
How do you market what you guys do? The reason I'm asking this is, I often talk about, are you selling a vitamin or are you selling a painkiller? Ideally, what you want to do is sell a painkiller, right? Like, this is something people need now and will likely do everything they can to obtain. Versus a vitamin, it's like, hey, something might happen. You might, like not have as much energy as you have right now in 20 years. So you might want to take daily those vitamins. Crisis management and helping people fill those communication gaps is really not that much of a big problem until it becomes a huge problem.
Yes.
So how do you market? How do you make people problem aware, solution aware? How do you educate to get your message across to the right person and brand your company?
That's such a great question. Thank you for asking it. A couple of different ways, right? Like we've written a couple of books.
Mhm.
That's certainly one way. We're on podcasts like yours, right? Obviously, a great way to right, woo-hoo. A great way to market yourself is to get out there and get visible and get known. And one of the other things we offer is sort of a one-two punch where we're not just offering crisis communications, we also offer the other part of it, which is more proactive communications.
Right.
So we say we get people into the news, we get people out of the news, we help them get the spotlight, and we help them hide when necessary, right? So it's kind of like that 1-2 thing. So on the positive side, we help people get on the right stages. We help them create their messages and develop trends within their industry, and we help them get into those industry publications that are really going to matter. So when they get on stage, they're well known. This also works if you have a crisis. Like one of our clients had a crisis and they did not do any marketing up until they had that crisis, and they had a much harder time recovering from the crisis than the person who was more known to the audience. Then they recovered a reputation that already existed rather than created the reputation as you're having the problem. Those are two very different things, and one is much easier to solve than the other.
Chip, you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think is that in what we are also talking about is personal brand building,
Yeah.
right? And I'm always amazed that when we're at conferences and Adele is speaking about building somebody's personal brand, those sessions pack out. They always do,
Yeah.
and it's very interesting is because we know that it's so vital to get out into the world about who and what we are and the kind of services we provide now more than ever. And what you see in those sessions is that people are wanting to know, what is my strategy? I know I should be doing something, but I don't know how. And the questions always come up. They will invariably ask Adele, they'll take the mic and they'll ask, how do I start? Or at this point in my career, what should I be doing? But that's how it begins. And once you're into that system, once you understand the process that Adele lays out, then it's a natural thing. It's everything will flow from that. There'll be a through line that connects everything. So it's good when we can get people at that stage and start to build.
I think one of the things that's just super interesting, right? And I think you probably run into this as well. So many people don't have a podcast. They don't go on social media. They don't do the videos because they are really insecure, right? They don't like how they look on camera. They don't like how they sound. They don't know what to say. They don't know what authority they obtain, and the way they obtain it within their industry. And so they're just nervous. They're nervous to go out there, and so they need a guide. They need prescriptions. They need messaging so that they feel comfortable going on podcasts like this one, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that's an example, and I think so many times people really don't have those skills, and they're nervous to go out there. They're nervous to put themselves out there, so they just don't. That's
Yeah.
that's their instinct, is just not to do it. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, 100%. So the funny thing is that I interview a lot of B2B coaches and consultants for whom the very nature of the work has them speak a lot. So that's a bit less of an issue. But 100%. And that's stepping out of your comfort zone is always uncomfortable by definition. And it only becomes necessary and the obvious choice when it's still less uncomfortable than staying where you are. And I
Mhm.
think
Right.
that's always gonna be the thing that's gonna make people make a move. And sometimes it takes a lot of time, and that's all right. How do you so whilst we're on the topic, actually, that's interesting because I think you have the right branding and marketing strategy here, right? It's gonna be about thought leadership, it's gonna be about education, kind of long-term cycle. Once someone is into your ecosystem, right? They've heard you on a podcast, they've read the book. How do you move that person from initial awareness to a conversation to an SOW, letter of engagement? We rock and roll. What does the sales motion typically look like for you guys?
Yeah, so for us, we have, I think we have a really great process where Chip will initially interview our clients or potential prospects. He'll figure out whether or not they're the right fit. He'll take them through what their their needs are, and see if they're even worth passing on to the next phase. And then I meet with them, and I basically go through, what are their bottlenecks, what got them to the point where they are right now, what have they tried in marketing communications, and then we have a really, in-depth conversation on whether or not staying the same is sustainable for their business, right? So many consultants, I'm sure you see this, are referral based. They just have a referral base. They're hoping for business. It's like, I've always gotten business. I just hope to get business again. And they really don't have any strategy. And they're getting business based on, here's the interesting thing. The people who stay in business with that model, they're getting business based on pure grit. I mean, that is like a holding on for dear life business strategy. And it's really nerve-wracking and not appropriate, not even in any way, shape, or form necessary. But because they've always done it that way, they don't really have another strategy. And so we talk to them. We're like, you don't have to do that. You can actually go and get speaking engagements, be in an audience, be in on stage with an audience that actually has the people that you want to meet in that audience, and you're having a one-to-many conversation instead of having just a cold outreach email or phone call. You're having a one-to-many conversation where you're the expert. You're the one who's creating the open loop for the audience, and only you as that speaker can close it.
It's so funny. And I mean, I don't think I'm going to antagonize people here, but it's like it can be perceived as a bit, touchy. When I talk to a B2B coach or consultant, and that's most of them, you're very right, Adele, who tells me, oh yeah, my acquisition channel is referral. I'm like, this is not an acquisition channel. This is you doing a good job. You don't have a business. You have a high-paying job, which, by the way, if that's the goal, that's all right. And there is nothing, actually, if that's the goal, you won. Congrats.
Right.
But it's like, if you want to grow the business, if you want to scale, if you want to build, you're going to have to step out of this referral only, because you're right. It only comes down to whoever thinks of you at the moment that someone is talking about you. Doing a good job definitely helps. But like, once you want to scale, once you want to grow, you need to get out there. And I like what you mentioned here. One-to-many is a very good way to start, especially for B2B coaches and consultants, because it is about building that authority, building that brand. How do you, maybe looking at you, Chip, here, how do you retain once you've acquired a new customer? The reason I'm asking this is in B2B coaching and consulting, there's going to be, the growth is also coming from retention. When you work on crisis management, so one of the aspects only of your business, I understand, but like when you work on this, you solve the crisis, you get people out of the news. I'm curious to know how you do that, actually. And then that's it. The job is done. How do you create recurring business? Please don't tell me that you're manufacturing crisis for your clients, so they constantly have to hire you. And that could be a technique, right? You're both the supplier and the
start throwing wrenches into what
exactly.
Yeah.
Fake investigations. No, we do that.
Well, I think that the whole thing is that once there are two sides to a crisis, and this is where Adele's business acumen it just excels. She often says, she's a business strategist with a PR problem, and vice versa, depending upon what's in front of her. Yeah. But after a crisis and during it, Adele will find there will be significant points, spikes, where there is something there that she knows that after this is over, that we can now turn to and exploit as a huge opportunity for this business as a result of what you've just gone through.
Okay. Right? Well, so one example, just really quickly, because this is like just a great point of reference, a great case study. We had a client come to us. They've been a client actually for 4 years, right? So they came to us initially, they were having a crisis, and the crisis, I know this is not going to surprise you, but was caused by, I can only say their lawyer. Because
oh my god, this is the worst.
Because their lawyer kept sending letters and emails back and forth to this really super irate group of people inside the organization who then were like, we're going to go outside and tell people about this issue. And they just kept escalating the issue, right? More and more and more, because they wouldn't actually get on the phone and talk to anybody. They just kept sending more and more emails and letters, and every letter just like made the people more and more angry, right? And so finally we came in and we were like, so what did we do? We made right? This is not going well. We hear, like you said, right? People know what to do, but they don't necessarily do it. So so we finally got the executives in a room with this group of people. We had a listening session, really helped move the thing along. We created a number of different strategies, and as God is my witness, which is a funny thing to say, right? This girl who caused the entire crisis issue got up and gave that person a standing ovation at the conference, generated a standing ovation. And then after that, we created an opportunity in everything that she was doing. She became someone who was an advocate for the organization. So you can really turn people around. It just is and there's an opportunity in every crisis. So it's just a matter of finding it. And a lot of times the person instinct that gets them into the crisis, they can't get out of the crisis with those same instincts.
And I would say, just follow up, is if we can give like one piece of practical advice for somebody that might be experiencing a crisis that are listening to this right now, it would be pick up the phone. Pick up the phone.
Right.
Stop emails.
Oh my God.
Stop
no
that.
Text.
Yeah.
No text.
Right? Because everything's going to go sideways. What we're doing when we do the emails is that we're affirming our fears, right? We're saying, I don't want to talk to you. And this subject is difficult. It's hard, because they don't know how to talk about it. But the best thing is to pick up that phone.
Yeah. It's great advice. Yeah.
It's so funny because in a lot of the things that you're saying, I feel things work exactly the same in sales.
Yeah.
Because it's about communication at the end of the day, and like not being afraid of rejection, establishing the relationship, establishing the conversation, making it live. So I like it a lot.
Thank you.
So tell me, how do I manage a crisis? I'm gonna take advantage of this interview to, pick your brain. So how do you manage a crisis?
Well, one of the first things we like to explore when we get somebody on the phone is we focus on what they are saying is unfair about the situation. If we were to think about the first move in any crisis situation, it would be to ask that person why they think it's unfair that they're in this position, because so many people can take so much time in that what we call the fairness fallacy process of a crisis, right? They'll get on the phone and the first thing that they will say, maybe even like 15 to 30 minutes of our time, is usually on why it's so unfair that people are categorizing them like this, are putting them in this position, are saying the things that they're saying about them. I mean, they will really give us a lot of explanation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things we always like to focus on is like, why do you think it's unfair? Why has it become unfair? Why has this evolved in this way? And usually that will tell you a lot about where to start. So analyzing why it's unfair, I think is a huge conversation that you have to have. And that requires breaking down someone's resistance to figuring out what role they played in creating the crisis. And that can be often a very difficult conversation. So having that conversation initially, I think is one of the first things to do, right?
Yeah. That's where you uncover, what's at play. The problem, whatever blew up is over here, right? And they want to point to that thing that blew up. All right, now what do you think led to that? What were the actions? And you start to unpack it. But to do that, going back to your original questions, is that they have to be comfortable. And what they want us to talk about is that it's unfair. We've done everything right for 20 years. This one thing, and
It's
this
a
person,
misperception. They got this wrong. This one person is causing this whole thing. It's like probably not.
Maybe not. That's actually a good point. Like, how do you And I don't know if that's something you guys do as well, but how do you prevent a crisis from happening in the first place?
Well, you can predict in any market, in any industry, what crisis is coming down the pike. You'll appreciate this. I think this is a fun example. Well, not fun example, but a good one. One of our clients was the Infectious Disease Society of America, and they hired us to do crisis communications for them. And
Okay.
so we wrote, and this is pre-pandemic, I should say, pre-pandemic. So we had one sales price for pre-pandemic, where we said, okay, we're going to solve all of your potential crises. And actually, one of the things we thought might happen is a pandemic, and we got them ready for a potential pandemic. And so when the pandemic happened,
Mhm.
they were ready to go with messaging, with a process, with a dark website, as we call it, things ready to go to solve the crisis, so that they were so much more positioned to be an authority than even the CDC in America. So it was that kind of thing. So getting someone ready for a crisis, like you said, is it a painkiller or a vitamin? A lot of organizations will not do a crisis plan. Most organizations right now have no idea how to handle a crisis. So when they call us, we're really expensive. Um, because
I
we're
like that
really
anchoring.
we're parachuting in, and we're helping them in an emergency situation rather than just addressing maybe a process gone wrong in the crisis planning or approach.
And they'll have a lot of times a crisis playbook, right?
Yeah.
A big manual that's
A
actually
binder
sitting on the shelf,
like
a physical binder sitting on the shelf,
1996.
and they've never cracked it. Because the cause of the day is about, hey, I've got to increase sales. I've got to get my team motivated. I've got to expand this market. It's not about leafing through something that's hugely preventative and something that will actually add to their bottom line if they ever face it.
But you can predict what crisis would happen for your organization. You just have to then do the planning to prepare and know what you're going to say. There's so many instances of big, huge industries having crisis and never being prepared. Like there was the cruise industry. They had a huge crisis, and they had people reporting from the boat what was happening as the crisis was occurring. It's like, you're a cruise company. You tell me you don't think you ever got a situation where you think a cruise ship's going to be, I don't know,
Without
stuck
power.
at sea without power? I mean, like, that's not on your mind as like a possibility. Of course you should have a plan.
Yeah. What's the thing that is challenging you guys in your business right now? What's the nut that you're trying to crack and that once you crack is gonna help you get to the whole next level? What would be that thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think we're scaling right now. I think our business is really taken off, so
Amazing.
we're not really having a business problem necessarily. I mean, I think what we're trying to do is really just grow with
The pace of it all.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's for us. Like we're at a really great point where experience product market fit.
Amazing.
We are very decisive on which clients to take and which clients not to take. I think that's a big factor. A lot of consultants get wrong. They'll talk to anybody, they'll work with anybody, and we're just more particular, right? We're niche in what we're problem we're going to solve, and we've attached that problem to top line revenue that our clients see immediately. If not within like 30 to 60 days of working with us, they see an increase. And just so many consultants
Amazing.
are not focused on that, right?
Yeah.
They're not focused on the business development factor of what they offer. They're not focused on how what they're going to do actually will change the pace of their client's life. And I think that's a misstep. When you don't get those two things to work together, clients won't buy, and then you won't grow.
Amen to that. Chip and Adele, ladies and gentlemen, Chip, Adele, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, are going through a crisis right now and they need help, where should they go?
Go to convincingcompany.com or grab one of our books called Convince Me. It's available on Amazon and in Barnes and Nobles and stores. And it teaches you all about how to actually change someone's mind, how to convince someone of something.
Might be handy. We'll put all the links in the description. What I can say for sure, guys, is that you've gained at least one new LinkedIn connection out of this. Me, I just added you. Chip, Adele, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure,
you.
Guillaume. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.